Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Journal Star Sportswriters podcast. I'm your host this week, Wes Huett, assistant sports editor here at the Journal Star. Joining me today is one of our sports writers, Stan Morris. Stan's our kind of a go-to guy, all things preps, and it's that time of year. Week 4 high school football season. We're going to recap some stuff, went on last week, and go over some stuff that's coming up this week. Stan, you want to first get talk about the elephant in the room with Aaron Ferguson, not with us anymore, unfortunately?
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Aaron, did so many good things as far as he's had so much energy and did so much. Really had a passion for covering high school sports, and you could see that. It's sad to see him be one of those that were laid off in the recent cuts. And Kirk Wessler, our sports editor, again, was one that's no longer with us too. And so, it's kind of tough this week without those guys. And we really appreciate all that they did for us. And they will be missed. And so,
we soldier on without them, but not without thinking of them, of course.
Right.
Everything we do will still be refracted through the prism of what they were here. I mean, everything Kirk has done over the years, and Aaron in a short time with us. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about last week. You went to check out some old professional stomping grounds of mine in IVC. I started my year 20 years ago last month, in Chillicothe, covering
Chillicothe Times Bulletin.
Dennis Frakes, I think, was the coach then. He's still coaching cross country, right?
Yeah, sure is.
So tell us a little bit.
Went to Taylor Field. Yeah, it was a little rainy night. Of course, most of them were rainy nights. Game played in a kind of a steady rain. Unfortunately, IVC just couldn't really get their offense going all night long. Was able to just get one a sustained drive going in the second quarter, but lost to a really good Pontiac team. I mean, I was down there on the field, starting lineups, and I could just see the size of Pontiac in their line, and it ended up being 40-7. Pontiac's 3-0 now, so
they're a tough program. They've
got a lot of tradition. Yeah, and so that's what IBC's faced, a lot of tradition in the last few weeks, and to be 1-2 with, maybe at the start of the season, maybe they would have been really happy to be 1-2 at this point in the season. So, but we'll see going forward with them. Again, they're kind of a young team. We've still got a lot of juniors that are playing, and so they're still kind of finding out who they are. And so, but I think there's some winnable games for them down the future. So
sure,
yeah.
All right, how about some other teams in anything with the Smalls? Anything that popped out to you? Week 3 performances?
Well, I tell you, we have. One that really popped out to me as far as the games last week was Tremont. Yeah, I mean, here's Tremont has been right in the first 2 games. That they were leading in the fourth quarter, both in week 1 and week 2, and had chances, but just didn't quite get there. And this time they're playing a really good Fieldcrest team. This is a Fieldcrest team that was 7-3 last year. Has most of those people back, other than our Player of the Year last year was Cam Grandy. That's a big one to lose. But they have a lot of talent back, 3-year starters, those kind of things. And Tremont just showed that they've made a lot of improvement over the last year. They were able to get a sustained drive there early in the game that kind of showed them they could run the ball against them, and then they stopped them. It was a kind of weird game because Fieldcrest scored on the very first play of the game. First play of theirs from scrimmage, boom, touchdown. Right. So you're at the 8-ball, behind the 8-ball right away. But then they saw that they could run the ball. They didn't score, but then they stopped Fieldcrest, and they knew they could stop them too. So it kind of gave them a little bit of momentum. Got a couple scores right before halftime, and then go on to win at 16-13. Really big confidence booster for them.
I would say so, because those are, I think I was sitting in this chair preseason, and Tremont was one of those teams that we thought might surprise some people. Unfortunately, they've on the wrong side of a couple losses early, but to get one like this could be that turning point. Because when it comes to high school kids, they feel like they're getting there, but it isn't until you get that W and the cheeseburger tastes good on Friday night that you're like, okay, the work means something finally. I mean, because Zach Zaire, I know him pretty well over there, and because he was a assistant at Dunlap when I was covering them, and he has a pretty interesting history with D-Mac. Yeah, he played there, and he was Jim McDonald's assistant for a while, I believe, under Caslett, and then Caslett went to Dunlap and hired Zach, and Zach went to Arcola and won a state title. It's like, and now he's back here in Tremont, and hopefully they get some things going there.
They showed marked improvement over game 1, game 2, and game 3, and I was impressed with them in game 1 even. The difference between them and last year's team, and last year I think they were 2-7 last year.
Okay.
So good for them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Who do they have this week?
They have Leroy, which is kind of a mirror game. Zach talked about they're kind of mirrors of each other. They're both 1 and 2, and kind of do the same things, and so that'll be a good test for them too. Sure. That's at home for them. So on the smalls, we still have 3 unbeatens.
Okay.
We've got Elmwood Brimfield. Todd Hollis really showed. He's been really impressed with his defense up front. I mean, shut out Heights 38-0.
Right.
They've got so many running backs that they're just kind of running in and out of there, and they're just trying to figure out, getting the reps for who. And they've had some guys that are injured coming back now, and kind of mixing them in with the guys who have, been there the first few weeks. And so they're kind of finding out who they are too on the offensive side of the ball. But he's really been pleased with their defense, and Farmington kind of did what they've been doing here lately. 20 regular season games in a row, 21 regular season games in a row that they've won.
Impressive.
And Hayden brought 322 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, all to Code Jansen. He got all 4 of those. And so Toby Vallis said that was the most complete game that he's seen them have this year. So,
wow.
So
that's saying something, because Toby tends to be a little more like he doesn't seem to be prone to hyperbole. Right. So that's saying something. It seems like, we got Farmington, but they're number 3 in 3A.
Number 3 in 3A.
Princeville was on the other unbeatens, right? And they're number 6 in 1A, right?
And they won 53-0 over a West Central team. Really, again, showed some good defense there against a rainy night. And West Central plays that similar style to Elmwood Brimfield with the scrum offense. And so John Carruthers was happy with what they did defensively. And, they were able to get the offense rolling, obviously, with 53 points. They've outscored their 3 teams now, 109-14.
Oh, man.
So they're...
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it's you hate to sort of say, because high school can surprise you at times, but there are times, I mean, these are kind of the teams we talked about at the beginning of the year as the ones to watch, and they've kind of shown so far that they've put in the work, and the kids coming back and having the experience, and these are the ones that are rising to the top so far.
They did suffer a big loss on Friday night. Senior defensive end Chris Hank fractured his shoulder, and so he's out for the year. So that's now 3 starters from last year that are out for Princeville. They lost Peyton Martin, who was an all-conference DB at the beginning of the year with an ankle, like a fractured ankle, I think, too. And Levi Endress, which was one of their linemen, coming back. He's still out. He could come back in a couple of weeks. They're hoping to get him back for Anawan Wethersfield, which will be a huge game, and in the Lincoln Trail. That's in a couple of weeks. So he's still got an ankle issue that he's working with. So that's you have a big win, but then you have somebody a senior, and you hate to see a senior go down with a season-ending injury like that. But and this Hank kid was. Defensive end, who's 155-pound defensive end.
Oh, gosh.
So he's one of those. Carruthers was talking about just his technique was just so good that that's what helped him, be able to be in there, because you don't see too many 150-pound DNs.
No. You think it's a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, anything else you touch on? I know we want to talk about arguably probably the lowest scoring game in state history. It's certainly hard to be beat, unless there was some sort of weird scoring system that we're not thinking of. But
you think that's a typo when you see that, right? Yeah. When you see, Mid-County beats Ridgewood 2-0.
2-0.
2-0. Okay, is that a forfeit or what? No, that was the actual score of the game, the third quarter.
And then they
got a safety in the third quarter.
Ridgewood had a field goal attempt, right? Late or no?
That could be. I mean, I didn't hear about that part of it, but this, again, rain and that kind of thing. But they had a safety that they kind of tackled their quarterback in the end zone in the third quarter, and that's it.
Wow,
that was all there was. So
I mean, I looked up I looked at some stuff about colleges and pros, and I couldn't find any 2-0 games. I mean, it's certainly not in the modern era. I mean, back in hundreds of years ago when they were running the ball, and plenty of 0-0 ties and things of that nature.
Right.
But when it comes to deciding a winner and being 2-0, there's been 2 NFL games that were 3-0.
Yeah.
A handful of 3-2, 3-0 college games, and we really couldn't find anything in the national high school books about most of the records are about most, highest,
right.
biggest.
Right. I'm
farthest.
sure there's been several down the years of
Sure.
Illinois games that have been 2-0. In fact, I came across a couple kind of interesting tidbits. When talking about that, I talked to Gary Denhart, the coach for Mid-County.
Yeah.
He was actually in 8th grade when his high school, the high school that he was going to go to, was celebrating their 50th anniversary of having lights, and there was a big game against Westville, and they ended up losing that game 2-0.
Oh God!
And he saw a 2-0 loss by a safety, and he said he had a cousin that dropped a pass in the end zone that could have won the game for him, but that was a 2-0 game, and actually Galva played a 2-0. Lost a game 2-0 to Erie back in 1987.
Oh,
actually,
wow.
31 years ago to
31
today.
Said,
September 11th, in 1987, and
so people don't know, Galva is part of Mid-County. It's not it's a co-op officially.
Co-op
right?
It's with Rova and Williamsfield and Galva and.
It's one of those co-ops that has its own name.
Right.
Every school
like
still
North Fulton
and
South Fulton and those, and it's Mid-County. But and also I found out that Elmwood Brimfield's assistant coach Brad Crisco played on that Galva team in '87.
So many ties.
So
center of the universe, as they say.
Yeah, right. So interesting, but you don't see a whole lot 2-0 games.
And for those interested, the highest scoring game. Is 233-0. Staunton beating Gillespie in 1923. That's the highest scoring
Peoria High
Illinois game.
Had the offense going.
Well, exactly. I don't think Peoria High is scoring 233. Yeah. They do hold the highest score for 2 teams when 2 teams score. When they beat,
and that was last year.
Notre Dame 2 years ago.
2 years
82,
ago.
80.
82, yeah.
And then DMAC that same year, right?
Yes.
Had the 3rd highest when they in a playoff game, I believe. Yes. Right.
They scored 96.
96 to
90. I don't remember it now.
Lots of points.
But it was, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you want to go over. You mentioned Farmington before. Dash Anderson. Had 144 yards rushing.
144 yards. Yeah, he ran over 200 yards the first 2 weeks, each of the first 2 weeks, and got 144. So they've got that passing running thing both going on. So. Yeah, Dash. What a name, right?
Yeah,
we talked about that last week, but anyway.
Almost made up. He's our guy, though, Dash.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a lot of some of the rushing performances in the big schools last week. Okay, they were really surprising. I mean, Sam Walter from Washington ran for 284. We got Javon Vinson, Peoria High, 281. Logan Cover at 177. And then the Canton quarterback, that guy just... He had 45 carries last week.
45 for a quarterback.
It's amazing to me. And it seems like every week they're just. And then in the same game he played Nolan Donald, who himself seems to be always carrying the ball 20 to 30 times. And it's a lot of big rushing performance. I think it probably had a little bit to do with the weather. I presume a lot of teams wanted to keep it on the ground, and there was some lopsided games. So that was. But I was looking his name up. I didn't know his name is Jake Smith. Now I do. Canton quarterback. 45 carries, 2 touchdowns. I think Cover had 4 touchdowns. Walter had 5. Just a lot of huge rushing performances. I don't know if Walter's going to go for 284 this week in the big Titanic matchup. The game.
The game.
This is it. The game. Dunlap, Washington, number 1 versus number 2 in 5A. I think Darryl Crouch said this week that, or was it that Dunlap should probably be number 1 since they beat him twice last year. But it is what it is.
Sounds like what a coach would say.
Of course, the coach would say that, and I think if the other way around, then Brett would say the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. Any thoughts? I mean, I know it's not your beat, not your guy, but I mean, you got it. It's still exciting to even just be sort of
Oh yeah, It's one of those kind of nights where you wish you could be in two places, you know, and be able to see that game. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, Washington seems like they're just on a real. I mean, they got all that senior leadership, those 3-year starters, and those kind of thing, that kind of thing, and. So
and we talked about at the beginning of the year about Dunlap's sort of unsung defense, and it isn't. Right. I mean, it's not unsung now, I suppose. I mean, Teague and Tino there and putting that together, and that's kind of what makes them go. It seems like, and it'll be that's what I would like if I were covering the game, seeing like that what Darryl does with his offense versus Dunlap's defense, and so I feel like Washington can be very versatile and pretty much do whatever Dunlap gives them, and I think it'd be really interesting to see how that. I mean, again, it seems like two evenly matched teams. It's going to come down to turnovers. It's going to come down to big plays. And,
there's some D1 talent on the
right. Exactly. When you have two, it isn't so much as just we just need to run the ball 45 times and win 40-0. And a lot of these high school games can be that way. But in this case, I mean, you saw Dunlap win a tough game last week against Pekin. Washington had to win a tough one against Morris, and so they've both been tested. So this isn't their first test of the year. It'll be interesting. Like I said, that hopefully the weather holds out and we can have the game decided based on the talent and not on the weather.
Sounds like we're going to have a good weather night, which is we'd be the first one so far.
Yeah,
that was a really good. Crisp football weather. So
and bring up a little bit. I think Notre Dame got its first win. New coach Pat Armstrong, pretty big deal. Anytime a new coach gets his first win, that's always exciting for the kids and exciting for him. And
it's funny, we were looking in the archives about that Galva thing and came across Pat Armstrong in that 1987.
Oh, really?
Year. So,
oh, wow.
Just kind of flipping through.
Where was he the coach there?
Was it playing?
Oh, really? Wow. I didn't know that.
87.
Wow. Yeah, and we have four. Looks like there's 4 unbeaten teams in the Middle Eye itself, which is a little bit. Obviously, that's the max amount we can have considering conference play started last week. But Dunlap and Washington, obviously, they're 3-0, and you got Morton and Metamora, which they're not huge surprises that they're 3-0. I think Metamora might be a little more of a surprise considering their schedule. I mean, they beat a Tough Rock Island team that turned around and beat Peoria High. Right. So, I mean, that shows you where the level of, if you're looking at comp scores, where Pat Ryan might have his team kind of primed to be back in the hunt for the Middle Eye title. They got Dunlap next week, and then Washington not until week 8. So those games are coming around the corner. Yeah. Obviously, like I said, that's a big game tomorrow with Dunlap and Washington, and then they certainly can't overlook Metamora. So coming up this week, any big games, small school wise? What do we?
I'd say pretty interesting game to go. Probably where I'm going to go, it will be DMAC again, Eureka and DMAC, Heart of Illinois Conference, large school conference game. They're both 2-1. You know, they both kind of feel like, you know, they're kind of progressing from week 1. And, DMAC gave up over like 400 yards rushing against El Paso Gridley and losing to them in week 2. Yeah. And then this past week they gave up less than 50 against Leroy. So they, you know, showed that kind of a marked improvement. And and they've gotten the running game kind of going a little bit better. And they have they certainly have Levi Sherman is kind of that 6'4" receiver now. He was quarterback last year, but now he's a big target there and can make some big plays for them.
He's just an all-around athlete. Yeah. He was our POI in basketball, and then did he play baseball too, or was it track?
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm spring sports, but
talking on my butt. I don't know.
But I mean, and Eureka's they're a young team, so they're just still getting, that varsity experience. They were a senior dominated team last year. Now they're kind of young, and coming off a big win, they won 52-0, I think, over Flanagan.
Wow.
But Flanagan's kind of struggling. They've had some hard times with just getting numbers of kids out and that kind of thing. But
it's kind of fun to see Eureka. I think we've mentioned this before on this podcast, to see them having some success in football. I think they finally they remind me a little bit of IVC, and then they've always been sort of searching for that conference and that where they can find a nice home where they're challenged but also can still compete. And I think they sort of found it in the conference that they're in now.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Jason Bachman, their coach, was talking about that. I talked to him last night, and he was saying, this is such a great fit for them as far as the conference goes. I mean, they've been looking for that kind of rivalry type thing because they've been playing the DMACs and they've been playing the.
And DMAC Eureka is just like a
natural.
Talk about a natural that should have been playing for forever.
Right. So he feels like it's a great fit for them in this conference, and they're happy to see these kind of rivalry games week in and week out.
Yeah.
And so. That's what it's going to be for these two teams. I mean, this is a big game that's kind of going to determine, can they make a playoff run or not. So on both sides of the table, 2-1, facing some really tough HOI teams down the road.
Sure.
So want to get your wins now.
Right.
But so that you can get that 5.
Yeah.
Big game for both of them.
Yeah. Anybody else on the docket that piques your interest there? I mean, we talked about Tremont a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Tremont hosts Leroy, but they're both 1 and 2. Got very similar teams. I think I mentioned that, and so, Coach there certainly is encouraged, and we'll see what they do there. IBC goes to St. Thomas More, so they're gonna kind of wanted to turn the page again.
And their schedule just looks like it just looks like a murderer's row of opponents. I mean, St. Thomas More, I don't think is as strong as they have been traditionally, but I mean, Pontiac, Tolona Unity, Monticello, St. Thomas More. It's almost like a playoff run.
St. Joseph Ogden.
It's almost like a playoff run. It's like first round, second round, third round. Just gets progressively tougher.
Right. So. Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
And then our 3 unbeatens, can they stay unbeaten?
3 unbeatens are playing some teams that are all struggling right now. So they're, Princeville's going to United, and Havana comes to Elmwood Brimfield, and Peoria Heights goes to Farmington. So those are, 3 programs that are really struggling and 3 that are really getting a lot of things done right now. So
Okay, well, you know what? We're going to be wrapping up here momentarily. Let's make a pick on the big games. How about Dunlap, Washington, and I don't know if you made your official pick yet in the chart yet.
Not yet.
I don't know if you want to put you on the spot, leave you some wiggle room in case.
You got a few days before anything.
Yeah, but
nothing's official yet.
Nothing's official, but we'll pick that, and we'll pick Eureka DMAC too. So what do you?
Yeah.
How about Eureka DMAC first? Who do you?
Eureka DMAC. Okay.
You don't have to be on the record. You can change it in the paper.
Right. It's at DMAC, which certainly is a help for that beautiful new Jim McDonald Field. It's just gorgeous. And so you got to give a little to the home team there. Eureka won last year. Again, they had it's different teams. Obviously, Eureka was a lot of seniors on that team, and this is one of those games where it is kind of a toss-up type of situation. But I'm going to kind of lean maybe with the home team there. Like DMAC seems again to kind of be getting that running game going, shore up a little bit on the rush defense there, and maybe Eureka will just kind of get a team in progress that's going to see how they do each and every week as they're playing just several sophomore, juniors, and some young guys out there. But I'll go with DMAC but only by about like a touchdown.
Yeah, I'd probably lean toward DMAC too. I mean, that's the thing about when high school's home team. I mean, it certainly means a bit when you play in a different facility like DMAC does. I mean, it's a situation with turf, and that's a different animal to play on when you're a small school. So that those things matter. So I'll go with DMAC in a close one too. How about the game in 5A, one versus 2?
Number 1 versus number 2.
Yeah.
The defending conference champ and Dunlap
against Washington, the challenger, which then I think they won the conference 3 years before that, right?
Right.
Yeah, or 2 years maybe.
Yeah. I'm going to give the nod, I think, to Washington.
Yeah, again. Me too. I thought maybe we disagree on one of them, but yeah.
Washington, it seems like they got
pieces, man. And
everything you need. Yeah.
And the thing, it was so much about knowing, talking, too, Stan, talking to coaches all these years, like you always need something to motivate your kids. And the fact that you lost to that team twice the previous year, even though it's different kids, they have enough. That's just enough to sort of like, no one expects us to win. Even though they're number one, the ranking, I can hear Daryl saying it now in the locker room. Like, the ranking doesn't mean anything. This is the team that beat you twice, knocked you out of the playoffs. You should have been playing for the state title last year, and you aren't.
Right.
Go beat this team. And they're at home.
Right.
And, so, And plus, has nothing to do with me living in Washington either. So, I'm not a Washington guy. I live in Washington, but it's a objective selection. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. This edition of the Sportswriters podcast. Be sure to check out Stan's coverage and all of it in the daily paper or online at pjstar.com/preps. Follow us on social media, Facebook, if you're watching right now. Follow us. Click the thing above us and go. Facebook/Journal Star Sports or on Twitter at PJ Sports. There you can join the conversation with the hashtag PGS Preps. For Stan Morris, I'm Wes Huett saying thanks for listening.
Thank you.